She cheated, lied, tried to take everything. Just imagine hearing those words, the sheer pain.
Yeah.
This isn't just some story we found. It's a deep dive into this absolute nightmare of betrayal. It completely shattered this guy Dan's world out in suburban New Jersey.
Right. He seemed to have it all figured out, you know? The classic American dream, wife, kids, the steady life he built after serving his country.
Exactly. But what actually happened was this incredibly twisted web of lies, deceit that just forces you to rethink everything you thought you knew about family.
Yeah.
And the choices people make when things go so horribly wrong. Choices you can't take back.
And you look at Dan's foundation, it was solid. High school back in 01, then after 9/11, he joins the army. Artillery in Afghanistan, that's serious dedication.
That's no quite.
Comes back, honorable discharge, uses the GI Bill, gets an IT degree from NYU, sets up a career. Then, boom, Kristen comes along.
The whirlwind romance.
Yeah, whirlwind romance. Married really fast. And look, sometimes that feels like fate, right? But other times, well, you can rush past some pretty big red flags when things move that quickly. You might not see what's really there.
That's a good point. And then there's Kristen's father, Richard Mallory. Big CEO type, major Manhattan firm.
Oh, right, the power player.
And he did not approve of Dan. You can feel it. He pushes hard for a prenuptial agreement, like a warning shot right across the bow. And there's this one clause, just brutal. If Kristen cheats, she gets 0. Nothing.
Wow.
Dan, apparently, he was so sure of Kristen, he actually thought it was kind of darkly funny at the time. Like the irony of even needing something like that with her.
Little did he know. Yeah, and that prenup, it starts as the symbol of Mallory's control, right? Like, Dan isn't good enough. But it ends up being, well, pretty critical later on. It really shows you how cynical Richard was about the whole thing from day one, protecting his assets.
Then things start to feel off. Kristen changes. She starts talking about this new colleague, someone her dad brought in, Jake Riley. A hotshot from New York, she says.
Uh-oh.
And suddenly there's talk about a promotion for her to be Jake's personal assistant, which means, more hours, late nights, traveling together.
Okay, yeah. Alarm bells.
For Dan, yeah, big time. He's got that army background, right? Trained to observe, analyze. He said later, something just felt off. That gut feeling, that instinct, it starts ringing loud and clear.
It's interesting, isn't it, how that military discipline kicks in, observing threats, analyzing. But this isn't the battlefield. This is his life, his family.
Totally.
So he shifts gears, decides to, as he put it, gather intel, very methodical, trying to get a handle on it. Even he must have been churning inside.
So his first move is clever. He does IT work for Kristen's company, her dad's business.
Oh, convenient.
Yeah. So he arranges a routine service call, checks the servers, does his thing. And while he's there, he casually asks around about this Jake Riley guy.
Smart, keep it low-key.
And that's when the first big weirdness pops up. Someone mentions Jake left this, cushy job at a big Wall Street firm to move here to Newark.
Newark, from Wall Street, okay.
Right. I mean, who does that? Especially when his wife and kids stayed back in New York City. It just screams something's not right. There's got to be more to this story.
Yeah, that geography just doesn't track. It's a huge red flag. Why take a step down, seemingly, both job-wise and location-wise, and leave your family? There has to be a hidden reason, a big one.
So Dan feels like he needs backup. He reaches out to his Uncle Sam, his dad's brother, apparently a former federal investigator.
Oh, perfect. Someone who knows how to dig.
Exactly. And Uncle Sam, he doesn't mince words, cuts right to it. Like, this guy's banging your wife.
Direct.
Yeah. Dan wasn't sure yet, but that seed of doubt, it was definitely planted. So Uncle Sam starts digging, and what he finds, it's explosive.
Uh-oh. Here it comes.
Turns out Jake was fired from his last job for an affair with his senior partner's wife, no less. Huge scandal. Basically, he had to disappear quietly or get totally blackballed.
Okay, so he's got a history, but how does Richard Mallory fit in?
That's the bombshell. Uncle Sam finds out Jake and Richard Mallory go way back, and then he gets Jake's birth certificate.
Oh.
Richard Mallory's listed as the father.
What? No.
Yeah. Jake Riley, Kristen's hotshot new colleague she might be working late nights with, is her half-brother.
Oh my God. That's beyond just an affair. That's horrifying.
It changes everything.
Completely. It's not just infidelity. It's this deep, profound violation. Incest. And the fact that Richard Mallory arranged this, brought his illegitimate son into the company, put him right next to Kristen, that's just monstrous manipulation. Zero regard for anyone.
The whole thing just keeps spiraling. Dan decides he needs to see Kristen's mother, Mabel. He described her as a sweet woman, kind of caught in the middle, maybe.
Okay. What does he hope to get from her?
He asks about Jake staying at their house. Mabel confirms it, says his condo wasn't ready yet, a plausible excuse. But then Dan asked the killer question. Must have been so hard. He asked, does Kristen spend time here with Jake?
Oof.
Heavy.
And Mabel hesitates. Her answer is vague, evasive. It's obvious she knows more, but she's trapped.
Yeah, likely terrified of Richard.
So Dan feels like he has to do something drastic. He needs proof. He manages to collect hair samples. First Jake's from the guest suite where he was staying.
Okay.
Then Richard's, from Richard's own bathroom.
Wow. He's really going for it. This is like a point of no return.
Yeah.
He needs the absolute truth no matter how bad it is. And Mabel, her silence, her evasion, it just shows how toxic Richard's influence is.
Then the DNA results come back. I can't even imagine waiting for that call or opening that envelope.
Must have been pure dread.
The truth was, honestly, worse than anything he could have possibly imagined. Neither kid was his.
Oh, no.
His son, the boy he'd been raising, was Jake's.
Jake's, the half-brother.
Yeah. And his daughter, his little girl, was Richard Mallory's, her own grandfather.
Stop. That's... I don't even have words. That is beyond sickening. Dan put it starkly. My wife had kids with her own father and her half-brother. Just imagine that world crashing down. The family you love, the children you adore, all built on this unimaginable, horrifying lie.
It completely destroys everything. His identity as a husband, as a father. It's a betrayal that's almost, you can't even compute it. The trauma of finding that out, it just fundamentally breaks your reality. Everything you thought was real is gone.
And somehow, in the middle of this absolute hell, he gets a call. Richard Mallory's secretary summons him to the office.
Oh, this sounds bad. Like walking into the lion's den?
Totally an ambush. He walks into this big, cold boardroom.
Yeah.
And there they are. Richard, Jake, some judge he doesn't know, corporate suits, even security guards.
Whoa, the full intimidation squad.
Richard, smooth as ever, offers him a drink, a glass of whiskey. Total power move.
Right, trying to put him in his place.
But Dan doesn't flinch. Stands his ground. Says his voice steady. I'll stand, and I don't drink with strangers.
Boom. Good for him. Drawing a line. He's not playing their game. That stranger's comment cuts deep. Shows there's nothing left between them.
Then Richard drops the other shoe.
Yeah.
Slaps down a document, a post nub. Wants Dan to sign it right then and there. The judge is just sitting there kind of watching.
A post-nup. After everything Dan knows, what could it possibly say?
The terms were disgusting. Basically, Dan had to agree that Kristen cheated, agree to raise her children, the ones that weren't his, pay all her bills, give up his own salary, his pension, essentially become her live-in servant, her butler.
That's not a legal document. That's an instrument of torture, pure humiliation.
Dan was sickened. He didn't sign, obviously. Took it home. And then, in front of Kristen, he just tore it into pieces, let them flutter to the floor. Said, his voice probably shaking with rage, "You tell your daddy he can wipe his ass with it."
Wow. A powerful moment, just rejecting all of it, all their control, their disgusting demands, taking back his dignity right there. That must have felt necessary.
And Kristen's reaction to all this, to him tearing up this insane document.
What could she say?
Gaslighting.
Yeah.
Pure and simple.
Oh.
It's just something my dad asked for. Don't take it so personal.
Are you kidding me? Don't take it personal. After that, the level of denial is just astronomical.
Breathtaking audacity. But Dan just cuts through it, his voice sharp, full of pain. He asks her point blank, how long's it been with Jake?
Yeah, the real question.
Her face just froze. Guilt, fear, everything. That night, Dan moved all her stuff into the guest room, the end of the line, told her, "You're no longer welcome in our bed." The finality of it, just crushing.
Establishing that boundary, he's not living the lie anymore.
She leaves. Goes running back to Daddy, of course.
Of course. Back to the source of the poison. Shows how tangled up she is in that whole sick dynamic.
Then, weeks later, and you won't believe this, Kristen comes back. All smiles. Celebrating this supposed promotion. Invites Dan to the announcement party.
No, the sheer gall. How disconnected from reality can you be?
It's staggering. Like, none of it happened. But Dan, he's already made his move. He's talked to a lawyer, Fred Marsh. The wheels are in motion. He's not just going to roll over.
Good. He's moving from being the victim to taking action, fighting back. Because celebrating a promotion at this point, that's just twisted.
So the night of the party arrives. Dan drops the kids off at his parents'. Kristen shows up, decked out in expensive clothes. Dan's just in a simple suit.
Yeah.
Quite the contrast.
Yeah, setting the scene.
Inside, it's exactly what you'd expect. He called it Catered nonsense, champagne, fake smiles, just sickening, knowing what he knows. Kristen's working a room with Richard and Jake.
Happy families. Gross.
But then Dan spots Mabel, Kristen's mom.
Yeah.
And she looks just exhausted, worn down by it all. She pulls Dan aside. Her voice is choked up. She says, "I'm sorry, Danny, you didn't deserve any of this."
Ah, so she does have a conscience. That's huge. A crack in the facade. She knows it's wrong.
It seems like that was the opening Dan needed. He tells her everything he found out. The DNA, the incest, the affair. He even tells her about the threats against him and his own parents. The murder plot he uncovered.
Whoa, hold on. Murder plot. That wasn't just about the affair and the kids.
Apparently not. The stakes got even higher. Mabel is just horrified, absolutely shocked, especially about the incest and the threat to Dan's family. Her face goes pale. And right there, she makes a decision. Tells Dan, "After tonight, I'm done. I'm divorcing that monster."
Wow. Okay, so finding out the full extent, including the danger, that was the breaking point for her. Good for her. Finally standing up to Richard. Reclaiming herself.
Dinner is just this grotesque performance. Richard gets up, makes a big announcement, introduces Jake as the new VP of marketing, then introduces Kristen, and he makes this snide comment, Kristen Ryan, as Jake's new personal assistant.
Ugh, twisting the knife with the name.
And then he makes this incredibly inappropriate joke about them being work wives. Can you imagine? Dan's just sitting there, barely keeping it together.
The level of cruelty is just off the charts. Rubbing Dan's face in it publicly.
Later, after dinner, Jake comes up to Dan, smug look on his face, shakes his hand and says, "Guess I'm the lucky guy now."
Oh, that guy needs a serious reality check.
Dan's reply, just low, quiet, but full of menace. Not for long. Kristen tries to jump in, smooth things over.
Too late for smoothing things over. Way too late. That threat hangs in the air. Dan's not broken. He's planning something.
Exactly. Dan makes his move. Chris is getting ready to leave, probably with Jake. Dan stops her. His voice is calm, but you can hear the steel underneath. "Well, before you head off to your important executive meeting with your work husband, there's someone I want you to meet."
Oh, here it comes. Payback time.
A process server steps out of the crowd, walks right up to Kristen, hands her papers. Divorce papers. Grounds. Adultery.
Served. Right there at her celebration. Perfect timing.
Her whole world just collapses. The mask shatters. She gasps out, "No, Danny, please, I love you." Disbelief, panic, everything hits her at once.
I love you now. After everything. That rings so hollow. It's almost insulting. The consequences are finally real for her.
Dan isn't buying it for a second. His rejection is absolute.
Yeah.
He lists her betrayals, just lays them out, each word like a hammer blow. The incest, the plot against him, against his parents. He spits out, "Don't tell me you love me." Just pure contempt and pain in his voice.
He needed to say it, needed her to hear it, all of it.
As Kristen just collapses, crying, the ballroom doors open again. This time, it's sheriff's deputies.
Whoa! It's not just divorce.
Nope. They walk straight up to Richard, Jake, and Kristen, arrest them all. Conspiracy to commit murder. Incest.
Holy cow. So the murder plot Mabel knew about.
Yeah.
It was real. And Dan had the proof.
Seems so. The entire ballroom is just stunned silent. You can hear a pin drop. Richard starts yelling, furious, but Mabel steps up, confronts him right there with his newfound strength, cuts him off.
Incredible. The public downfall, swift and brutal, justice served right there. And Mabel finally finding her voice against him. Powerful stuff.
The aftermath was, as you expect, a media storm. Headlines everywhere. Dan gets painted as the internal whistleblower. Smart move.
Definitely. Frames him as the one who exposed the corruption.
Bail was denied for Richard, Kristen, and Jake. The evidence was just overwhelming. Turns out Richard's own company phone system, the one Dan's IT team had probably worked on, recorded everything. For training purposes. You know.
Oh, the irony. Hoisted by his own petard, his own security system caught them.
Yep. Recorded them planning the whole thing. The murder plot, everything. They found the hitmen they tried to hire, the money trail, even a corrupt judge involved. All of it came out.
An airtight case. Unbelievable.
Dan testified. Mabel testified. Videos, DNA, phone logs, they had no chance. Guilty verdicts came fast. All three got prison sentences stretching for decades.
Justice, finally. Though, like you said, the emotional damage, that doesn't just disappear with a guilty verdict.
True. But Mabel, she really turns her life around, divorces Richard immediately, takes over his business. Turns out she had this hidden business acumen nobody knew about.
Wow, good for her.
Yeah, she turns the company around, makes it successful again. And she becomes this constant, steady presence for the kids. Like a second mom, Dan said. Really stepped up.
That's amazing. Finding strength and purpose after all that darkness. And providing stability for those poor kids.
And Dan, he kept the children. He realized, biology isn't everything. They were his kids in every way that mattered. He saw himself in them, his own quirks, even saw his own mother's smile sometimes.
That's incredibly moving. That takes real love and character.
The court agreed, gave him full custody. Kristen didn't even fight it. Maybe she knew she had no right.
Probably for the best. He redefined what family meant for him based on love and commitment, not the horror they came from.
Dan saw Kristen one last time. Before she was transferred to prison, she signed the final divorce papers. He just had one question left for her. The one that must have burned inside him all that time.
The big one.
Yeah.
Why?
Why'd you do it?
And what could you possibly say?
Her excuse was just pathetic. Said she was trying to have it all. Greed, entitlement. She actually hoped he'd just accept that horrible post-nup and they could all, live happily ever after. It showed how deeply delusional she was. No grasp of the damage she'd done.
Just completely self-absorbed, no remorse, just excuses, trying to justify the unjustifiable. That's almost sadder, in a way.
Dan had nothing left to say to her after that. His final words were just chilling. Rot in hell. Then he turned around and walked out of her life forever. Left her to face what she'd done.
Wow. A brutal but maybe necessary ending to that chapter for him. A complete severing. He had to walk away to heal.
It's just such a devastating story, isn't it? It shows how deep the wounds go, and the betrayal comes from the people closest to you, your family.
Absolutely. It forces you to really think about what family truly means. It's not just blood, is it? It's love, it's trust, it's commitment, showing up.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's also about resilience. Dan's resilience. Finding that strength to push through unimaginable pain, to protect the kids, to even find a way to keep loving them. Real love, maybe that's the takeaway. It can endure even when everything else is just ashes.
Looking back at the characters, Dan really goes through a transformation. Starts with trust, love, then gets hit with this profound betrayal, but it doesn't break him. It fuels him, makes him determined to find the truth, to protect those kids. He finds this incredible inner strength, guided by a strong moral compass.
And Kristen.
Yeah.
Just seems driven by pure greed, this awful sense of entitlement, leads her to make these horrific choices. And even at the end, she just doesn't seem to get it, still making weak excuses, no real grasp of the consequences.
Richard is the epitome of arrogance and power corrupting, controlling, depraved, believes he's untouchable, his actions are just shockingly criminal, but ultimately, he couldn't escape accountability.
Mabel's interesting too. Starts off seeming passive, maybe trapped, but she finds this hidden strength, this moral core. Her regret pushes her to act, to divorce Richard, to testify. She really transforms, wants to make amends.
And Jake, just ambitious, morally bankrupt, willing to go along with this appalling scheme, this incestuous relationship, all for personal gain. Complicit.
Yeah. It really leaves you thinking. This whole story raises some really tough questions.
Definitely does. Makes you wonder.
Like, what do you think about Dan's decision? Raising children who aren't biologically his, especially given their origins.
That's a deep one. And Kristen, do you believe her claim at the end that she actually loved Dan? Is that even possible after what she did?
Hard to fathom. And maybe the biggest question. What does this whole nightmare tell us about how power, greed, and secrets can just corrode a family from the inside out? The destructive potential there.
Heavy questions. Really stick with you.
Absolutely. If the story moved you or just made you think, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube.